In Parshas Korach, we're going to be reading about a story that many of us are already very familiar with, which is about an insurrection, a rebellion against Moshe's authority, a desire for the kahuna to be shared more evenly and distributed among the general population, and Korach essentially challenging Moshe's authority and the fact that he was a valid representative of Hashem. And we also know that the aftermath was that there were 250 men who represented Korach's leadership. They felt that they could offer incense as a way of showing or positioning themselves as the authoritarian leaders of the Jewish people. A fire comes down and consumes them. That's the first step. The second step is that Korach's families and the families of Dasan and Aviram, who are part of this insurrection, they seem to be isolated in one group, in one area. And Moshe goes over to them and says that if these people die of natural causes, then you can rest assured that God did not send me and I'm not legit. But if something miraculous happens, v'im b'riyah yivra Hashem, but if God creates something new, ufatzesah haaretz espiha, and the earth opens up its mouth and swallow these people, so then you know that God has sent me, and these people are not right in their claim. And so the earth opens up, swallows up Korach, swallows up Dasan and Aviram, swallows up their families and everyone else who had participated in the insurrection. And the question is, why did God choose this way of destroying Korach's insurrection? There are many ways that Hashem could have chosen to quell the machlokes, the rebellion. Why did Hashem choose it by causing the earth to open up and swallow up the people who were challenging Moshe Rabbeinu? And why did Moshe feel that it was correct to do it in this way? Because really Moshe was the one who requested of Hashem that it be done in this fashion. That's at least the way the psukim are communicating to us, that it was Moshe's sort of prompting of Hashem to cause the earth to swallow them up. So why was it done this way? There's an interesting commentary from Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, who lives in the 18th century, was a brilliant Kabbalist and commentator, and his sefer is used. We've actually quoted from him in our discussion of the Sidur when we were going through the other blessings of the Shmona Esrei, from his sefer Ya'arot Devash, but here's from his Torah commentary, and he gives us 5 reasons why God specifically agreed to swallow them up using the earth, and in his 6th point, he explains why it had to be something that was created, something miraculous and something that previously did not exist, at least not to the human perception. So because of time constraints, what I'd like to do is just read just snippets from some of the things that he writes, and we'll sort of just get the tamtzit of what he says. So first of all, he starts off with the words kavanat devarav. What Moshe really meant is la'amet shalichato imhu me Hashem ha'ot bekach im yamutu kederech kol haaretz o mita mishuna mimitat kol adam. Moshe Rabbeinu felt that he needed to legitimize the fact that he was God's true emissary. And he felt that in order to do this, that God would have to in some way demonstrate this by creating something miraculous, that these people would die by unusual means. Al pima demevuar bezohar ki kafru b'maaseh v'reshit. So the Zohar tells us that part of what Korach's insurrection was all about is that he actually was challenging the whole idea of creation. In other words, at least according to some opinions, what Korach was really challenging was not only Moshe's authority, but the fact that God was actually communicating with a particular individual and guiding new phenomena through Moshe to occur to the Jewish people. Because, and this is something that runs is a current that runs throughout Torah commentary, is the idea that the Torah is countercultural to a view that existed within ancient philosophy, which was that there is a God, there's a prime mover, but that God is not directly involved in human activity. In other words, there is this divine force, but it's not something that we can interact with, and God does not insert himself into human history. And so that was part of Korach's insurrection. He felt, listen, we have been fortunate that the divine mover, the prime mover, is with us and is guiding us, but it's not based on our ability to move that mover. We have no ability to do that. We just have been fortunate to be under the mover's good graces, and that was preordained, and therefore no one can take that authority and say that he's communicating with that God, because no one can communicate with that God, with that divine being. And therefore part of the argument was that there never was a creation, because creation in itself philosophically suggests that God inserted himself into creation at a given point in history and decided to create a world from nothing. And that goes counter to that philosophical view. So that's essentially the first approach that Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz takes. And he says that Plato was an advocate of this idea that the world was created from primordial matter, that there always was an existence, and that it just evolved by natural causes from the earth, and the earth evolved into oceans and land and trees and vegetation and life, and then human life, the process of evolution. This is what Plato advocated, and this is what Korach, according to this interpretation, was advocating as well. So in order to demonstrate that Korach was mistaken, God chose the very element that Plato had suggested existed as the main ingredient of creation and used it against him. God took the earth, which is in the Platonic view, the earth was that primary ingredient from which the entire world evolved, and that's what swallowed up Korach. So that's the first interpretation as to why the earth swallowed up Korach. Yes?
Quick question. This is before Darwin?
Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz is writing this before Darwin. Yeah. Well, Plato is a long time before Darwin. Yeah. Plato is before the Common Era. So, yeah, the idea, you see, Darwin was not so off from what some of the ancient philosophers had said. He was just able to demonstrate scientifically that there seemed to be an evolution of species over the course of time. But that's not really, the evolution concept is not something that Plato and Aristotle really advocated. Aristotle had advocated that everything has eternally existed the way it is now. And Plato said that there was some kind of evolutionary process, but he didn't believe that things had essentially changed from the time of creation. So Darwin is really a departure from both of them, but it's the same idea, that natural selection, natural processes that are causing what we see in our world today, that God is not directly engaged with humanity. So that's explanation number one. Why the earth plays a role in swallowing up Korach is because the earth plays a role in the philosophical argument that God is not interactive with our world. Okay, argument number two. The earth, and this is a really beautiful shot, the earth represents man's mother who is shamed by her child's behavior. And so Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz says over here, and we'll start with that underlined word gam. Gam keshechata adam harishon nitkalel ha'adama ba'avuro. Remember, when Adam originally sinned, what did God do? He cursed Adam, he curses Chava, he curses the Nachash, and what else does God curse? The earth itself. V'kotz v'dardar tatzmiach lach, that the earth will now produce thorns and thistles because of your sin. Why did the earth deserve to be cursed through Adam's sin? So he writes, where does Adam emerge from? Adam emerges from the earth. The earth is Adam's mother in a sense. God is the father and Mother Earth. All right? The earth is the mother of Adam because the mother, so to speak, is the physical matter that helps create the human being. And so essentially what he writes is, Kamosha mikalalim ha'em, arur shazu gidela. When you curse a person, you say, may you be cursed, may the mother who birthed you be cursed. That's the way you curse someone, and that's why the earth was cursed when Adam was cursed. Hainu kemoshe ha'im siba lepesha haben letiva hara. This is because you didn't raise your child correctly. If you would have raised your child well, if you would have given your child the proper tutelage, he never would have turned out to be such a loser, and therefore you get cursed and your mother gets cursed as well. That's the idea behind the curse that's placed on the mother of a rogue, is also a rogue. And so the argument that one could have made is that Korach, perhaps the reason why he was so sinful was because of that physical nature that had been imbued with him from Mother Earth. And that's the argument. Therefore, the earth may be to blame when we have to curse Korach. Let's curse the earth as well. Maybe the whole reason why Korach is such a bad guy is because he's driven by his physical drives, which come from his physical side, his earthy side. And in order for that to be dispelled, in order for the Torah to sort of say, Korach's motivation was not because he was a lustful being, that he desired physical gratification. Korach's motivation was purely on a metaphysical level. He was driven by his desire for honor. He was driven by some kind of spiritual delusion that he had. It wasn't based on his physical side. It was based completely on something metaphysical. And the earth, therefore, is not to blame at all for Korach's sinfulness. How do you demonstrate that? You have the mother participate in the punishment. If the mother of the individual participates in the punishment, so then you know the mother is not to blame. Then Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshit says, what's an example of that in the Torah? The Ben Soreru Moreh. You know that story, the Ben Soreru Moreh? The wayward and rebellious child. So the Torah says that who brings the wayward and rebellious child to the Sanhedrin? Who brings the child to the Sanhedrin? His mother and father have to bring him, and they have to say, B'neinu zeh soreru moreh, einenu shomea b'koleinu. He's not listening to us. In other words, what they're arguing is, it's not our fault that this child is a Vildechaya. It's not our fault. We did everything that we were supposed to do as parents in order to raise this child properly. And therefore, we wash our hands of any responsibility. That's the Ben Sorah Morah process. And by the way, the Gemara says it's very difficult for parents to ever be able to say that. That's the reason why the Gemara says there never was an actual Ben Sorah Morah execution, because which two parents can honestly say that it wasn't our fault? That we didn't contribute, at least, to the fact that our child is a wayward child. No one can actually say that legitimately. But be that as it may, that's the story of Korach and the earth swallowing him up. It's the mother of Korach basically saying, I had nothing to do with this. This had nothing to do with the fact that I, as Mother Earth, contributed something negative to Korach's personality. He didn't get this from me. He didn't get this from his physical side. There's something within him, psychological, spiritual, whatever you want to call it, that is causing him to go astray, but it's got nothing to do with his physical side. And that's why Hashem uses the earth as a way of swallowing him up, to punish him, to demonstrate that it's not the earth's fault. Okay, that's his second commentary, his second answer. His third answer, why the earth swallows up Korach, is because, says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshit, that the accusation that Korach leveled against Moshe was that Af lo el eretz zavat chalav u'devash hevi otanu, that Moshe, you never brought us to the land flowing with milk and honey. So what they essentially accused Moshe Rabbeinu of is that maybe you're actually powerless to bring about salvation to the Jewish people when it comes to matters of the land. You didn't bring us to the land of milk and honey. You didn't bring us to that land. I mean, we saw you do miracles, great miracles. You brought miracles from the sky. You brought miracles, you split the ocean. But maybe you're a one-trick pony. Maybe you only do tricks when it comes to the oceans, the waters, the sky. But you don't have any power over the land. look, you're bringing us through this desolate place. You're not able to bring us to a land flowing with milk and honey. And so therefore, maybe that's indicative of the fact that you have no power over land. You just were able to perform miracles in the air and the sea. And that's the reason why Hashem created a miracle through the land. To swallow up Korach through the land specifically to demonstrate that it's got nothing to do with Moshe's abilities. And that's why Moshe himself is the one who makes this statement. Because he wants to demonstrate the fact that you argue that I didn't bring you to a land of flowing of milk and honey is your accusation that I'm powerless to do so. Let me show you the control that Hashem has given me over the earth. And that's his third reason why Hashem punished him through the earth. Reason number 4 is that they accused Moshe of being false because he hadn't rectified original sin. And their argument was a similar argument, which is, Moshe, if you really gave us the Torah would have perfected humanity and it would have perfected the world. We would have gone back to being in the Garden of Eden. And you haven't been able to rectify that. So clearly the Torah that you brought down for us is not the real Torah. You don't represent Hashem. And you don't have power over the land to rectify it and make it into a paradise once again. And so because that's part of the argument, Hashem punishes Korach once again through the land. Reason number 5, which is he just mentions in passing, but there's a tremendous amount of literature on this idea, is that Korach was a Gilgul of Cain. Who is Cain? Cain kills his brother. What do I mean by a Gilgul? Everyone know what that term means? It was in some way, the Arizal says that Korach was a reincarnation of Cain, and Moshe was Hevel, reincarnation of Hevel. And when Korach killed when Cain killed Hevel, he buried him in the soil. And what does God say? Kol demei achicha tzoakim elai min ha'adama. The voice of your brother's blood is crying to me from the soil. And because Korach repeats the same sin of Cain, which is to try and destroy his brother Hevel, try to destroy his brother Moshe, God says, not this time. Last time you succeeded in burying Hevel in the ground. This time you will be buried in the ground. The Cain is now, the retribution ultimately for Cain is to have him swallowed by the soil and to have his blood be swallowed up by the soil. And that's the fifth and final reason that Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz gives for why Hashem decided to use the earth as the tool or as the vehicle of retribution to Korach. There is one more. The reason why I said that this is a separate issue is because Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz in number 6 really is coming to answer a different question, which is not why specifically the soil, but why specifically a unique creation? Why couldn't God have just caused them to die through a plague? That would have been just as miraculous. But he says over here that one of the things that a tzaddik is very mindful of, and we know this from Yaakov Avinu, a tzaddik knows that God could easily perform a miracle for him. But what a tzaddik does not want is to have overt miracles performed for him. Why? Because the tzaddik knows that whatever overt miracles Hashem performs for me will be deducted from my assets. That's why Yaakov said, Katonti. I know that you've performed miracles for me, Hashem, up until this point in my life, and therefore I'm not sure whether I deserve any more miracles. Maybe my account is overdrawn because you've done so many miracles for me. So a tzaddik wishes to avoid God performing miracles for him if he has his own self-interests at heart. And what Moshe was trying to demonstrate by having this amazing new miracle take place was that he was trying to demonstrate that it's not about me. It's not about my own self-interests. I would rather have Hashem perform a miracle that demonstrates that God is controlling this whole process of our wandering through the desert, even if it means that I have to have sort of deducted from my account some of my reward for being a tzaddik. It's worth it in order to be able to teach this educational moment to the Jewish people. And that's why Moshe so much beseeched Hashem, please Hashem, perform a miracle. Let the Jews see that not only that you're in control of this situation, but let them also see that I don't care about preserving my own merits. I would rather sacrifice my merits through the performance of an overt miracle for my sake, in order to be able to show the Jewish people not only that you're in charge, but also that I don't care about myself. And that's why 6 is Moshe requested a miracle to show that he wasn't interested in his own benefit. Okay, so you can take that. You can use that. You can say, I learned 6 new things today about Korach and the earth swallowing him up. And I hope that helps you. Any questions, comments? If not, we'll call it a day.